We'll get started. Welcome back to the Soft Life. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Kay, and you can share your intro with us.
So I'm Kay, and I like to say that I'm a lot of things. A storyteller, a creative, a slow life enthusiast, lover of travel, self-care, and self-discovery, really. So I create content at The Iconic K, and my intention there is really to inspire people to take care of themselves. So whether that's travel, whether that's staycations, whether that's slowing down in the morning, whether that's developing new routines, like whatever that looks like for them, I'm just trying to inspire people to embrace that.
We love it. We love it. And can you tell us where you are right now?
Yeah, so I'm based in LA, but currently I'm in the beautiful Puerto Escondido, Mexico. I've been here for about a month. I'll be traveling around Mexico for another month, just taking it all in.
Love it. We love it. Well, thank you for joining us and thank you for being here. We're so excited to talk to you. And I started following you years ago. I want to say almost 3 years ago now. And I love everything that you share. I'm also very aware that what you share are just snippets of your life. It's not your actual life. And I think it's important to remember that as we continue having discussions with people who are digital creators or content creators that, they're letting us into a window of their life. But what you do share is absolutely beautiful and gorgeous and it's inspiring. So very excited to talk to you. And I would love to know what some of the defining moments of your upbringing were.
Wow, that's such an interesting question. So I always tell people this one. I work in advertising. I'm like a very visual person and I'm like a deep thinker, which is good and bad. So I remember, I'll never forget, I was in, I think Kroger, which is a grocery store from where I'm from in Mississippi, with my dad, and we were in the cereal aisle. And I was like, Dad, why are all the good cereals near the bottom? I was probably 9 years old. Why are all the good cereals at the bottom and the bad cereals are at the top? And he was like, it's intentionally designed that way so that people like you grab the good cereals and put them in the cart. And after that, I was just always like, wow, that's really cool. There's design, there's human thinking, and it just all that together just made me ridiculously curious. I've always been a curious kid. So that's definitely a big defining moment for me. And then another, I would say, is deciding where I would go to college. So it's funny because as a Virgo, I had my life planned out. So I knew I would be going to Ole Miss. I knew I'd be going to Ole Miss, aka the University of Mississippi. But once I got there, that just literally changed my whole perspective on life. And I just knew I gotta explore, I gotta explore the world.
Love that. So it sounds like since you were a kid, you were really observant of your surroundings and were already thinking about the meaning behind certain things that most people probably would have just ignored or went unnoticed. However, you were still paying attention to those things, even as a kid, which is it's very heartwarming how it's those parts of us are still there, even though we're a big age. It's there's still that inner child in you that's always going to be curious. But on that note, how did you get started as a content creator specifically?
Yeah, so after graduating college, it's funny because I obviously in my senior year, I was freaking out on what was next. And I got into this internship program that essentially was like a draft. So once you get in, you can be drafted to any agency in the network across the country. So I was essentially drafted to this agency working in San Francisco, where I had a month or summer long internship. And so when I got out there, I just was documenting my life. I was working, my work view was the Golden Gate Bridge, which was epic. So I would just capture things and I kind of fell in love with videography, photography, just the art of documentation. I had always been obsessed with writing. So kind of coupling my writing skills with my videography and photography, I just started creating and people started following along.
And I feel like that was where you were sharing your, your ideas and your visual inspirations, I feel like that it was during this almost like a renaissance of Black
Mhm.
women sharing. And I can name so many Black women, honestly, at the top of my head, but there's so many Black women who really starting to express themselves visually and using pictures and videos and a combination of the two to really tell a story. So I definitely think of you as part of that movement of self-expression. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to tie in not only your creative journey and your professional journey, but also it impacts how we take care of ourselves. And I know that you are a self-care enthusiast and a slow living enthusiast, but what was the beginning of your wellness journey actually like? Like, when did you start intentionally saying to yourself, I want to take wellness to a different level?
Yeah. It was definitely when I realized that I was depressed. Like I didn't really know what depression was. So in my family, I have someone really close to me that deals with bipolar disorder. So I've always like grown up in kind of an unstable, sometimes environment. But I didn't really know how to name it. Like I didn't know what the names of the things were. But after living in San Francisco for a bit, I realized I was depressed. And this was like right around the beginning of the pandemic. I'm sure I was depressed before that, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I was just very lonely. And I was just like, how do I fix myself? Because I was getting tired of being like down because I was like, this isn't me. So what I did was at first I just started reading. So I read the 7 spiritual laws of success and it honestly changed my life. Like it taught me about self versus ego. So like things that you can control versus things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And it really just blew my mind. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to start taking the things that I can control very seriously. So that's when I started leaning into how do I take care of myself all the time, like full stop. How do I take care of myself?
Yes, I love that book. I also feel like that book really opened me up to, not just focusing on your professional life or your career goals, but also how do you take care of yourself and your mental health
Yeah.
and your spiritual health too along the
Mhm.
way. And I think a lot of us at this age of, our late 20s, early 30s and beyond, we have a moment where we're like, okay, I've been focusing so much on my career. I've been
Yeah.
focusing so much on my career goals and my professional, what's next for me, but how do I feel inside? And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to see a lot of women, especially Black women, that are starting to take a step back from that and really evaluate, okay, what do I want my soul to feel like, So I would also love to know, I feel like you have made a very intentional choice to choose the life that you're living now. And I mean, I say that because sis packed up and moved to Mexico and is here for some time. So that's not
Yeah.
something that you can do,
Mhm.
on a whim for, I feel like, a lot of people. How did you decide that this was the life that you wanted, that you have right now?
Yeah, so kind of what I mentioned earlier about self-discovery, that was like the first step in really figuring out like who I am and what I want to be. And like therapy helped out with that. But I definitely think that just like it's so weird to say it, but literally the first step is literally just deciding because once you decide this is what I want, then you can figure out, okay, what are the steps? Like, what do I have to do to be able to get there? And it changes like all the time. Like, what I want changes, and that's fine. But like, I really try to lean into just like, what am I feeling? What do I want right now? And for me, like, one of the biggest action steps was getting a fully remote role because I was like, originally, my dream was to quit my job, like, have money saved up and be able to travel. But once the pandemic hit and I started working remotely I was like, oh, wait, like maybe there's another way to do this. And I could just essentially be able to work from anywhere. So when my company decided that they were going back into office, I was like, well, this isn't for me. Like, this is fun, love it here, but I'm being pulled in a different direction. So that's when I started looking for other roles. And it's a bit easier in my industry working in advertising than it might be in some other industries. But
Right.
just deciding like I'm going to look for another job and it's going to be fully remote and then finding it, that like really changed everything for me.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that 100%. I also work remotely, and
Mhm.
I think it has made such an impact on my quality of life.
Oh,
First of
yes.
all, living in New York City, like stress, like getting on the train, stress, getting on a bus, stress.
Relatable.
It's stressful. So I'm like, the minute I did start working fully remotely, I was like, wow, this is I really did feel like a big difference in my stress level overall, but like my quality of life improved so much just by having that freedom and having the freedom to like start my day slower and not
Yeah.
have to like fight my way on the subway,
Yes.
and you and I both work full-time jobs, and we're both creatives as well. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges as well as the joys that come from having both of those worlds?
Challenges would definitely be comparing myself to other full-time creators.
Mm,
I had to realize that I can't do that. I can't compare myself to other creators because like they have a schedule that just looks very different from mine. So understanding, sorry, can you hear this? Let me
yeah.
mute it.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. Um, yeah, so obviously comparing myself to others is a challenge, and I had to realize that that's just unfair and not possible. And then another challenge is just finding the balance between giving my energy to this other entity, so like this corporation that's paying my bills, versus what I'm passionate about and what I want to do. So there's always, and like I haven't figured it out, there's always me trying to find that balance. And I'm figuring out every day. Some of the good parts, though, is definitely the skills that transfer over.
Right.
So, like learning presentation skills, people skills, how to work with teams, like those are things that really help me on my content creation journey, and that will eventually help me as I flourish into like a businesswoman. So, definitely the skills being transferable is super helpful. And I feel like a lot of creators can say that, like whatever skills they learned, like through their job or in school, they're probably like applying it to their creative journey today. And it's like, you're supposed to never stop learning. Like life is one big like classroom. So that's also how I look at it.
I couldn't agree more. I literally was saying that to my mom the other day. I was like, life is long and you never stop learning. You
Yeah.
literally every single day is an opportunity to grow in an area that you want to become an expert in one day,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
for example, when I first started this podcast in April of this year, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how this works. However, I knew that I really wanted to be good at it. I knew that one day I wanted to be really comfortable having interviews and conversation
Yeah.
with people because that's how we enhance our collective consciousness.
Yes.
When people tune into a podcast or when they watch a video or they read a book, we're knowledge sharing, and that's
Yeah.
how we get rid of stigma. That's how we get rid of biases. And I think if we give ourselves a little bit more credit for even trying and
Yeah.
learn and not be afraid of the learning curve, you're going to expand your mind to so much. And that's how our communities get better, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
That was
Um,
so beautifully said. I love the way you
oh,
put that.
thank you. Thank you, girl. I know that you are a lover of travel, and I would love to know how traveling has expanded your perspective on freedom, on luxury, and of connection.
Wow. Honestly, it's taught me so much about those things, because I think one thing is seeing how other cultures live their life, because I feel like American culture is very specific. It's specific in that it's like very fast, it's quick, um, it's just very specific, and sometimes that can be draining. So going and experiencing other cultures and seeing how they live their life, even like when they have less resources, less means than we do as Americans, it's still like they have a level of freedom that we don't have. And for
Yeah.
me, freedom is just very important. Also just seeing how other cultures like get together and have dinners. It also like, especially Latinx culture, I'm really like so inspired by it, and I can relate to it a lot with my culture as Southern Black.
Mhm.
And just like the feeling of togetherness and connection is really, really important. And just like traveling while Black is a whole thing in itself. It's kind of like you don't really know what you're going to get. And sometimes that can be daunting, but like just being able to have conversations with people from everywhere, being embraced by people, like that is just unmatched. And it just also teaches me to open up myself, and be more embraceful of new ideas, new places, new people, and new things. So yeah, endlessly grateful for everything that travel has taught me.
Yes. Yeah, I think that, traveling is one of those things that a lot of people do consider a luxury, and it
Yeah.
can be, depending on how you want to travel. But traveling doesn't always mean getting on a plane either.
Mhm.
Traveling can literally be getting on the Metro North and going to upstate for a day, or, taking a road trip, or
Mhm.
taking the bus somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to get on a plane and leave the country. So
Yeah.
I love that you share both your local and your international travels, because there's a lot to learn from all of those. It's not
Yeah.
just, traveling does not look like one thing for one person. And I
Mhm.
think you share that so beautifully. And getting back to kind of talking about our healing journeys, I know that you have been open about your mental health journey. And I would love to know what some of the books and albums are that have helped you and guided you along your healing journey.
I love that you said books and albums because I'm such a music girl, and I know that you probably know because
Same here.
um wow, yeah, music is really, really healing for me. I grew up in a household. My parents are both older. They're like in their upper 60s. So I
Mhm.
grew up in a household where we were listening to Al Green, the Isley Brothers, Jill Scott, Erica Badu. Like I grew up listening to those things, and kind of like with me, I'm a Pisces moon, so I'm deeply emotional. I connect music with emotions, and I like music that makes me feel something. So like whether me being super sad, like Frank Ocean, that's my baby, like just anything that makes me feel something, I can relate to it and I can be in tune with it. So like for me, and then like as I'm listening to something, it's like both the words that are making me feel something and like how the track sounds. So that's just like it could be very, very relaxing.
Yeah.
So like for my day, I like in a typical day, I'll start my day with music and then I'll also end my day with music. It kind of helps me like wind down. So that being said, like literally anything Frank Ocean, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is such a big one. Anything Jill Scott, what else is relaxing? Earth, Wind, and Fire, like um, so many. I love listening to like Graduation by Kanye West. It really just gets me going. Like I love music that like makes me feel something and that's like talking shit. So I love like Kanye things. And then as far as books, like the Seven Spiritual Laws of Success is huge for me. I'm currently reading The Power of Now, which is about just like taking advantage of what's happening like right now and not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future. And then I've also read, what's it called? High Vibrations. We'll pop it in or we'll have it in the, well, I'll confirm and we'll have it in the description, but it's by Layla. I can't think of her last
Oh,
name.
vibrating higher daily. I have
Yes,
that.
Vibrating
Yes,
Higher
yes.
Daily. Yes, by Layla. And I read that like a couple years ago during the pandemic. But just like the way that she uses her life experiences and story tells about what happened to her and how that put her on her spiritual journey, it's
Uh,
deeply relatable. So I highly recommend all of those.
I love that. She also has just such a gentle way of like speaking and relating, and it just makes you feel like, okay, everything's gonna be okay. I love everything you share. Um, I definitely want to read The Power of Now. That's been on my reading list for a while now, so
Mhm.
maybe that's a sign to read
Yeah.
it. Um, but I talk a lot about Black women especially having to be strong all the time. And the reason why I named this podcast The Soft Life is because of that. It's because that Black women are expected to be strong, but not expected to be soft. And softness meaning being vulnerable, being able to ask for help,
Yeah.
being given a life and resources that we deserve and that we have access to. So in terms of, living in a world that expects you to be strong on all the time, what would you say, what are some of the unspoken truths about that, being a Black woman and living in a world that expects you to be strong and expects you to be resilient 24/7?
It's funny because I have this conversation sometimes with my mom. She's very much like, I'm strong, like it's okay, and you're strong, it's okay. So I'm almost like faced with it. Like often it's really funny, like the kind of disconnect and always being like, actually, mom, like it's okay to cry, like it's okay to not be strong. Like we shouldn't have to make ourselves strong. And it's like almost crippling is what I tell her. So I definitely think some unspoken truths are that it's impossible to be strong all the time. And honestly, it's not really fun. I don't want to be strong. Like I want to be soft. I want to live my best life. I want to be protected. I want to be like taken care of. And not in a sense of like money or, like superficial or material things, just in a sense of like, I can lay my head down at night and know that everything's going to be okay, even if I had a bad day. I can wake up the next morning and feel like life's going to move on. And that is like utmost importance to me. And I feel like that's kind of how you define and how you embrace softness is like that stability and understanding that things will be okay. And also it's important to also surround yourself with people who also think that way, because those are the people that will uphold you and uplift you and understand when you're not able to be strong.
Mhm. I love that. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. I think, we all have different definitions of softness, but I think one common thread is giving yourself grace, giving yourself
Mhm.
compassion, and then also
Yeah,
creating a community where you can rely on other people if you do fall, even if you do have a bad
absolutely.
day.
Hmm.
Speaking of community, I would also love to know how you have gone about building new friends or new connections as you travel. I think that's sometimes people are afraid that if they travel alone, especially if they do solo travel, that they're just not going to know anybody and they're going to just be
Yeah.
by themselves all the time. So I'd love to know any experiences you've had where you've, been able to connect with people and just deepen that connection everywhere you go.
It's funny because when I first moved to San Francisco, I was completely alone. Like the only people I knew were my coworkers. So I got very used to going to like bars by myself. I went to like a SZA concert for my birthday by myself. And then just like being able to start having conversations with someone. So like realizing something common or even just like saying hi. And that experience in San Francisco really helped me be able to do that anywhere. So like I was recently at this resort where they had like a family style dinner. And I was the only one there that didn't really speak Spanish because we're in Mexico. And so it's interesting because like I just sat down and I was like obviously by myself with a bunch of couples. And the guy beside me just started engaging me in conversation. Like usually when people see you alone, like good people, especially like again in Latinx culture, Black culture, we tend to be so focused on community. So yeah, just like not being afraid to have conversations with people. Like you don't have to tell them your life story or tell them your business or even tell them that you're solo. It's just like being able to engage in conversation, like find common nuances. And he didn't speak much English, but like he was able to engage me. We found some things in common. And then like someone finally arrived that did speak English and he was like super receptive to like translating things and really engaging me in conversation. So it's definitely there. Like once you solo travel, you go somewhere different, you can like literally practice by going to dinner by yourself and sitting at a bar. People are typically like warm and inviting, and I appreciate that about the human race.
Yes. I love that. I think that, like when you travel, you realize like there is actually a lot of good people in this world.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
know that this world makes us want to not ever leave our home and just stay
The
inside.
internet.
Like, nope, not coming out. Y'all are crazy, which, there are some crazy people out here, but I think traveling, every time I've traveled, I've also found an enormous amount of kindness
Yeah.
and grace and compassion. I felt the same experience when I was in Tulum. I went to Tulum in actually August, and with my partner, and he and I just felt so much love and
Yeah.
compassion from the host of our like hotel, and
Mhm.
just like they just went above and beyond to make sure that we had a good time there.
Yeah.
And I was kind of sad when we were leaving. I was like, no, I don't want to leave our friends. Like, everybody was so sweet. But I really think traveling shows you that there are good people, and there are
Mhm.
people that, want you to have the best experience possible. And when you do find that, it encourages you to find it elsewhere too.
Exactly.
That's where you get that travel bug. You're like, okay, where to next? Like,
Yeah.
let's see, let's explore. But speaking of that, I feel like, some of us have had representations of Black women in our lives who live a life of slowness, or live a life of ease, or live a life of softness. Do you have any people in your life, or people that you look up to, whether it's a celebrity or somebody that you admire, creator, that represents that lifestyle that you appreciate?
The first person that came to mind was Tracy Ellis Ross.
I knew you were gonna say
And
that. I had a feeling, because she came to
and
mind.
it's funny because I just really love, like, she's a lot more bubbly and seemingly extroverted than I am, but I love how she just kind of like does what she wants to do. Like, she embraces life. And she's single. She's like, she doesn't have people in her business, in her romantic business. She just lives her life. And I really, really appreciate it, especially as like an older Black woman. I feel like one of my aunts who I miss all the time, she like grew up, she never had kids. She like had a couple of marriages, but she just like was focused on herself her whole life. And I just think that that's pretty cool. Also, who comes to mind is like Elaine Wilderbraw. I probably said her
Yeah.
last name so wrong, but I really admire her and how she both like how she shows her life on the internet. So she's like recently married. She recently became a mom, and she talks about like slowing down, and like she's also created this career for herself that's very untraditional. And I love that because I feel like as my career and my life starts to blend, I want to both set boundaries, but I also want to make it mine. Like, I want to make sure that what I'm doing career-wise and in my lifestyle is like complementing each other. And I love the way she does that. A couple of other creators I just love to follow on social and who like make me feel good seeing their content would be like the Big Styles. Adore her. I actually met her in person at an event in Vegas and had such a good time. Skylar Marche, of course, she's just like amazing at how she communicates things visually. So the girls are doing it.
Doing it. I love that. And I think, you had a combination of women who are a lot older than us, and then women who are our
Yeah.
age too. And it just shows that we are literally creating a movement of
Yep.
changing how we show up in this world, how we take up space. And I love to see this. And I'm just giving everybody their flowers too, because we need more of that. I love
Mhm.
seeing Black women live, unapologetically. Um,
Yes.
absolutely. Okay, so we are going to go right into our rapid fire session.
Okay.
So your responses are, there's no wrong answers, and it's just the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
So first question I have to ask, obviously, what is your favorite vacation spot that you've ever gone to?
Favorite vacation spot ever is probably going to be Canggu, Bali.
Oh, okay. Okay, Bali. Okay, second question. What is a place that you'll travel to within the next year?
Within the next year, I'm dying to go to Brazil.
Yes. Yes, Brazil, y'all will see Kay very soon. Okay, insecure or girlfriends?
Ooh, that's so hard. They're both in LA too. I can't even pull the LA card. I'm gonna have to go with nostalgia on this one. Girlfriends, just amazing show.
I mean, girlfriends walk so insecure could run.
Exactly.
That, well, next question, long form or short form content?
That's interesting because I've like dabbled with the thought of like making short films or movies.
Ooh,
Hmm, I'm gonna go with short form for this one just because that's what people love right now. But I do see a world where that maybe changes.
yes. I think social media is constantly changing, so
Mhm.
we'll just keep our eyes and our minds open. And last
Exactly.
question, massages or mani-pedi?
Massage. I'm a physical touch girl, like through and through. Obviously, mani pedis are also, but like I feel like being at the nail shop is labor for me. Like just sitting there and waiting for it to get done. I would rather just be laid out with some music playing and literally meditating and having my muscles and my body rubbed on, yes, but like having the blood circulating and I know I'm gonna feel great after.
I love that. Also, I really don't know why manis and pedis just feel like like it's so much effort and
Yeah,
it's so much time taken out of your day
so
and you're
much
like,
time.
it's literally a chore and I want to cross this off my list so that I look okay, but it's
Exactly.
commitment. I feel you. I feel you. Well, okay, thank you so much for chatting with us and sharing so many gems about, softness and what your travels have taught you, and also how you've been practicing grace on your healing journey. I would love to know where people can find you, if you can share your socials. I also know you have a newsletter, so feel free to plug in all of that for us so we can stay in touch with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on everything Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at the iconic K. That's TheIkonickKay. I do have a newsletter where I'll be showing a little bit more into the behind the scenes of things that I share on Instagram. So that includes like links and resources to my favorite places in the world, Airbnbs, even like things that are really filling my cup. So like podcasts, books, and yeah, I am a huge fan of yours, huge fan of Sadie Baddies. I've been a fan for a while, so really, really appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much, Kay. I loved talking to you. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your time in Mexico. I'll be on Instagram liking every post as usual. I appreciate you and thank you so much for being here.
Of course.